Yeah, so I think the very first moment that I know that Los Angeles can be a new home was I was 8 years old. A very cliche story, but I watched the movie Blade Runner, and then I remember super clearly like the city of Los Angeles in my mind, in my subconscious, was something that like where the future holds, where the flying cars, like where the architecture is future, where the cinema is reinvented. But it's not also the tech world, but it's close to the tech world, such as Silicon Valley. But it's not truly in like, you know, it's just a very, it's in Americas. It's like in a new continent that is different than where I live. And I mean, all these ideas were there. But I think practically, I got my first Master of Fine Arts degree in Istanbul in visual communication design. And I did a project by myself, really with a limited resources. In 3 weeks, in 2011, I made a piece called Augmented Structures with a friend, Alper, who was an architect. And I witnessed, as a just an alone media artist, alone meaning not a team, like very limited knowledge. In 3 weeks, we built a massive project. At that night, the opening night, I mean, again, 9 years ago, we used like sound data of the street and reconstruct as a three-dimensional surface and projection map it. And 9 years ago, in 3 weeks, like no sleep. And I was just feel like, wait, this is weird. Like the opening was amazing. People enjoy it, but I felt like that's not the work I just should do in my life. It is just something amazing, but also something horrible. So then I think the time to go somewhere else, a new journey, a new idea, and I openly look at options in Europe, in Asia, but I felt very connected with my school, which is UCLA Design Media Arts Department, where I got my degree. And in this department, there are some heroes. So I always dedicate my talks to my heroes and teachers because without them, I don't think we are nothing. So I had like several great mentors like Casey Rias, Christian Moller, Jennifer Steinkamp, Rebecca Mendes. These are like incredible people and especially media artists who have been using technology, imagination. They were like my heroes. I said, I'm going to learn from the best based on my knowledge and then create a new journey with my studio, hopefully when I'm done. So that was the plan. 2011, November, I put the plan. And now here in Los Angeles with my team, it was a 9 years of journey, but it's exciting. It's eight years, let's say, starting with the Los Angeles, but so happy to be here in the city. Very true. And I think it's a great question. I mean, it's a fantastic question because let me show, may I share my screen?
Sure.
This will become more visually exciting.
Yes,
so,
please do it.
So just for people, I mean, this is the, oh, sorry. Let me switch to the, like this. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
All right. So this movie, this scene, Blade Runner, like this is like the time I was 100% sure that Blade Runner, which is a story about like replicants, right? They are not, I mean, human, or they may be human. One of them is maybe human. But that universe, and a machine has this human-centric context of life and a city that it inhabits was always for me like with AI. I mean, AI never went from my brain. But I think my true connection with the idea of a machine is 8 years old. I got my first Commodore 128, start playing games. And I was, by the way, an epically game addict for a long time. And I was playing games too much, I guess. And in the games, when you think about like an alternative opponent, a machine that can also be your friend, a machine that plays with you, and a machine can like beat you or like become like a friend to compete another machine. Like this feeling of, I mean, AI is always in the menu, like in StarCraft, right? I mean, it never gone from my mind. But practically, the question is how to merge the AI purposefully in the artwork. I think it started around 2012 when I started my journey at Design Media Arts Department. With case areas, I mean, I was discussing like, can data become a pigment? Data paintings. And then with Christian Moller, I discussed, can data become a sculpture? And we make data sculptures. Like those are like early steps of 2012 and 13. And then another like, I think happened is around 2015 summer, the deep, like I think just for the people to remind you, this is the image maybe people can remember from the from the press, and the maybe 2000, July 15. This is the year that I was inspired by this amazing image that was in Reddit, in like forums and everywhere, right? Deep dream. So is it, just for the people who doesn't know, it's basically it's from an kind of a research developed during the ImageNet, which is a large-scale visual recognition challenge in 2014. And it is using neural network, convolutional neural network called Inception, and a wonderful engineers at Google were exploring and experimenting the backpropagation, which is a kind of a technique that machine can reinterpret what it learned by reconstructing it based on what it knows. And that idea like that a machine can learn and machine can interpret reality is so close to who we are as humans. So our human cognitive capacity of imagining, dreaming, hallucinating, it just like 2015, I was just so happy about that. And something very meaningful happened. I was just so happy. But also 2016 2016 February in San Francisco, group from Google opened up an exhibition called Deep Dream. Memo Akten, Mario Klingemann, who are like very first artists working with this medium, they did this auction, this algorithm that Google shared, Deep Dream. So this algorithm published in GitHub, people were able to use it. It was an incredible revolution that an algorithm, an AI algorithm is public and we can use it. It was amazing. And that year I said, all right, that's the way, that's time to like learn this. But the most, I think, amazing thing happened is the collaboration and an invitation from Google's Artist and Mission Intelligence Group. It is a residency program inside the Google, and Blaise Agüera Arcas, who is a wonderful mind and I think a brilliant also engineer and researcher, distinguished researcher. Kenrick McDowell, and he is the AI curator of the program. They together and open up this amazing opportunity. And for me, what was incredible is Mike Taika, who was the collaborator back in 2016. And me and our team worked together and for almost a year. And it was that's how I started my journey with AI. I think I may be one of the early generation media artists using AI. And luckily that was a big took off. So what we did together with him is I was extremely inspired by the idea of like the consciousness and it's like context in AI. And we were very fortunate to look at this amazing book by Jorge Luis Borges, The Library of Babel. I think it's an incredible book, an incredible story about a library that consists of incredible amount of every single information in the world. And then from there, like we took off. So the idea was what will happen if an archive can dream? So, and then we look at the patterns of information of millions of images from a public library and let the archive dream its own context. And back in time, 2016, Mike showed me and my team how to use these algorithms, again, like 4 years ago. And then I think this was a very pioneer moment. And I was obsessed with the idea latent space. For the people first time listening, latent space is a concept that when machine learns, it holds the data in this n dimensions, a mathematical space. And I was obsessed with this idea, like how can we navigate in a world that doesn't exist? Like we can't even touch it. So then obsessed with this and create all the stories, all these algorithms, like lower dimension reduction journey, data universe concept. And at the end, this whole thing became an immersive piece. So now as a studio, last 4 years, we only focus on AI and it is importance for the arts. So what you see here is an immersive environment where an audience can interact with the data and watch and witness how AI learns. I find it very fascinating and poetic. Like when you go to a library and AI like learns in front of you, like as a human, you see that the machine is so quickly finds the patterns, make meanings. And at the end you're in that universe. So it's just I found it, poetic. And for the people to just give a more context, this is an algorithm called DC-GAN. I think we were one of the first exploring this algorithm like 4 years ago. The idea was what will happen if a library can dream its own documents? What will happen, the space where you learn the reality becomes completely unreal, what looks real. That kind of speculations. So I think it's a great question. And I think I am always inspired by, I have many heroes, first of all, from science fiction. So I always say that like I inspired from remembering the future. And I think I'm an artist. I'm not a computer scientist. I am not like, neuroscientist, but I think as a human being, I enjoy being able to like create imagination. And I think as Carl Sagan said, imagination will often carry us to the worlds that never were, but without it, we go nowhere. I think it's an incredible statement from a scientist that inspired many, many generations. So I think imagination is one way of like looking at this question. And for me, what I understand is AI right now is not close to general AI, right? The pattern of like understanding the life and the decisions are not predictable or in a way that still requires like policies or like reward systems, or still in the very baby steps of that. But I mean, there are incredible research, right? From the DeepMind. I mean, I was very honored to get a beautiful email yesterday from Demis, the CEO of DeepMind. Because first of all, my inspirations are the people who are doing AI research ethically and deeply and purposefully. And I think like DeepMind or the friends at Google or NVIDIA or Intel. So I think as an artist, I am staying in a very unique position, which is an advantage of like being able to think with Intel or IBM or Microsoft or NVIDIA or whatever. Like these are the people who are inventing our future. And these are the people who are putting new policies in our life, new apps in our phones, like new decisions in our apps. So I feel like to predict future, the only way to predict future is being able to work with these minds and understand their future. And I'm very honored to work with them to predict this a little bit better. So what I can say is everyone I am talking, everyone I am imagining, everyone I am collaborating with is extremely positive people. And they are not there to, create an evil machine. They are not there to make a Skynet. They are not there to like make that, evil algorithm destroys us. They are not there to lose our jobs. I don't think so. So first, let's get rid of, I think it's very openly saying, I'm not ignoring the ramifications. I am saying we have to ask other questions. For example, as you ask, for me, the future of AI is extremely enhancing the power of mind, expanding the power of mind. Like for me, it's not just a tool, some cool technology, shiny pixels. For me, it's truly expanding my cognitive capacity. And when I think about that, not Elon Musk style, I mean, right? Tomorrow, Elon Musk is revealing Neuralink demo, which will be probably very evil idea, most likely, not to him, to someone else. By the way, he may be the most bright person in the world. But if someone opens a port to human brain, that port in anywhere in the world will be, of course, reinvented. So let's accept this. But what I'm saying is when AI is purposefully used, and when we cure Alzheimer, when we cure cancer, when we find a solution to climate change, when we find a solution to learning better, faster, when Alzheimer is like, somehow cured. I mean, those are the moments I feel like AI should be helpful. And not the art. I mean, art is something that we do to bring awareness and enhance our imagination. But practically thinking, I think we have a huge chance of doing something never done before for humanity. So, I mean, honestly, like one of the reasons, so 2016, I witnessed the power of AI because of the Google Arts and Residency. And the next year, I was so unfortunate to see my uncle like losing his memories. And then, I mean, honestly, I don't know, for me, the art is like truly like understanding who we are and I mean, find that common language that, connects all of us. I mean, if we only have an egocentric experiences, I don't believe that will be the future of humanity, that will be purposeful or impactful. But again, it's art, right? I mean, we have this freedom of imagination. What I was very much touched is like really the memory memories are our most precious information, I think. It's the most important data for our privacy, for our free will, for our future and the past. So, but what was very inspiring is when I was super, shocked by the power of this disease called Alzheimer's. And then when I learned that actually, if you can look at the pattern of remembering, like the moment of remembering. And if you know that actually the data that we as human beings, like pulsing through our like electric signals through our scalp, that can be recognized and measured. And when you have AI, you can find the pattern of remembering. It was just incredible. Like, again, it's not just because AI is fancy. It's not because of AI is doing something cool. I'm doing something like I wasn't. So that was like sometimes I'm hearing in these feedbacks like, oh, it's just a tech. Like it's not. It's just there's a story behind it. Like there's a reason behind it. Like I think that's sometimes the field we are in is missing this part. Like you can see some cool renders or whatever's and some like shiny pixels and but the context and the discourse is the big problem of our field. And I think AI is only there to let us imagine, but doesn't mean that we have a grounding, strong idea. Again, I think the problem of this field in general, when you think with AI and neuroscience and architecture, at least it's my personal motivation. Believe me, it's a big topic of like thinking. For example, I'm using a software called vive. That's my tool set, I guess, for now 10 years. For the people who wants to know, it's an incredible software that is pretty much can do many things by visual programming language. I'm not like a very heavy coder at all. I love visual programming language. So I'm not like deep into code, but into maybe the visual programming imagination is much inspiring. And we have now as a studio, incredible team members, allowing me and my team to go beyond what we can do. And what you see here is a tool. I'm calling it a tool because it's not, I mean, it's a brush, like it's a brush of the idea that can take these signals from the EEG device and real-time transforms them into this, like, reality. So this kind of AI imagination, like Carl Sagan said, is where AI has a future, at least from my perspective. So it's not solving the problem of Alzheimer's, but it's allowing arts to make awareness that hopefully will help people to feel the moment of remembering and appreciate being in the world. So again, that's my ways of, I think, understanding this. Absolutely, yes. For me, it's a thinking brush, a thinking pen. It's thinking brush that is allowing me to go beyond what I could do myself. Again, expanding the power of my mind. That's how I read and how I contextualize. It's not a thing that it can think and decide for me yet, but one day, why not? I would not say no. A team member here imagining with me, I mean, I'll be happy to host that entity. But I mean, not at the moment, not in this decade. But to really understand this technology, I believe that we have to speculate, like the architecture. So architecture is not, I mean, I don't think architecture is just concrete, glass, or steel, right? Architects are speculating the future, speculating the life in Mars, life in other spaces. They don't build that, but I think they imagine it, which is incredible. Same thing AI. So for AI, for me, is a brush that can think. And painting with a thinking brush is, I think, the idea here. Yes, so I think, first of all, again, 2011, when I start working myself, I was so like limited, and I found that being alone in this game is just not right. It's just not, for me at least, from my perspective. I'm not an artist in the studio working alone with like one bunch of computers. It just felt too, I don't know, asocial. It just doesn't fit into my life. By the way, since my childhood, I enjoy like playing with friends, like, in the young ages, like bring my friends, let's discover new places, let's go this location, let's find new places, like that curiosity, right? Like finding a new place that you never went, or finding an object you never play with, like that kind of feeling. I never lost that, I guess. And then when I've witnessed that when you're a team, when you are more than one mind, when you kill your ego and become a beautiful organic machine, which I'm calling us as an organic machine, you become something way bigger than who you are. And that feeling is not about ego, it's about something you envision together. And I think I found that power in 2014 as a team. I mean, before that, I've been working with my colleagues and friends, but I truly understand it when I saw our creations, like 2014, LA Philharmonic project, maybe for people, just want to like show you quickly to remind you, we were able to augment the Disney Hall, which is the home of LA Philharmonic and Frank Gehry's incredible building. And when we augment this building, 2014, I was just like so happy because as a minimal group of team, augmenting Frank Gehry's building and working with my hero, like seeing his, and also by the way, SFK Salonen, to just remind him, he's a wonderful mind who truly allow us to like work with him and his body motion. And again, like 6 years ago, using real-time graphics and augmenting architecture, like this was something very fresh. So what I want to say is that was the moment, like when there's 3,000 people in here, 3,000 every night, 9,000 in 3 days. My hero and shaking like this. It's the first time I was doing something to public. I mean, in this level. But it was incredibly successful. And again, the Frank Gehry, just let's remind him, he's a very hard person. So he doesn't like copycats. He doesn't like, not a fresh idea, he's very angry to unauthenticity. But when he was in the like green room, he was so supportive, and his support is so meaningful that, like you get this energy, like you get this motivation that your hero says, okay, architecture, media arts, they can collide and you don't need screens anymore. Yeah. And that was a beautiful statement. Anyway, this is our first studio in downtown, in Silver Lake in Los Angeles. Like we were like 5 people in the beginning, and now we are 12 people, can speak 12 language, 25 median age. Pretty much everyone can code in their own reality. And just we try to be multinational, multicultural, do our best to be diverse and as equal as men and women, like doing our best. And I think what the team is very fresh is, this is a boring maybe page for startups, but it's not. I think what we are doing as a team is not only 12 people we have. So we are collaborating with right now with Google, right now with DeepMind, or like NVIDIA, like Gensler, like Arup, Epson, like these are big entities and they have an incredible resources. So we are not alone. Like we always collaborate with these people last 6 years. And I think the model of imagination here in the studio is not egocentric, not me, like us. So like a very different, I guess, and it's not commercial, which is very important. So we do not move logos. We do not make anything commercial. So I think it's a great question. I think to remind maybe the history for me is like 5 years ago, we had an incredible project happen in 2015 in San Francisco called Visual Depictions. As I told you, 2011, when I did my first public art, I thought that art should be for anyone, any age, and any background. And art should not be in a museum or gallery. It should be for like everywhere, anytime, like no door, no ceiling, no floor, that thing. And 2014, we won a competition, which is called Data Sculpture in San Francisco. And we use public data sets from the city of San Francisco. And we transformed the lobby in 3-dimensional 3D data sculpture. And this project, I guess, truly changed what we were doing. As far as I know, it's the first in the world and inspired many others. But I think this was like really the case study for our studio that like Twitter saw this, other companies saw that. And suddenly the studio have in the, magnet and the point of view of tech companies, I guess. And I think remind people that data can become a pigment and data can become something else, but what else they can do with that. So that's how I think we inspired some minds in the field, and they all come back with amazing ideas, amazing questions. So it's an inspiration, to be honest. Like this piece, I think a pivot point for our studio and for the field, I can tell you. Yes, and especially like what is really for me is super inspiring is like, I think again, 2012, when I studied with Kaiser Rias, And he's an incredible mind for people that, I mean, started with Ben Friday processing. I mean, the idea of creative coding and such a big inspiration, like, and I was so honored to, like, you know, imagine with him, like, I asked the question, like, can data become a pigment? Like, can we turn the data into, and he gave an incredible inspirations. He gave incredible insights to me. So I'm very grateful to him and many people at DMA. But so, and it was an idea, like, why not we turn the data into a pigment? And then, and eventually this idea of, like, imagining a canvas that we are carving through this data. And to make it happen, we spent so much time. And now, the beauty of, like, data as a pigment, again, like 8 years ago, it was just something very, like, I mean, even in the critic class, I was, like, saying and sharing, and it wasn't resonating positive, to be honest. Like, people were not, you know, reacting. So you had to prove that kind of thing. Was very inspiring. And I think there are many great people in the field, like on Formative, like Field.io. They have been working with data as well, like for in a corporate clients, like they are still doing great work with corporate clients to, like, educate them. But for me as an artist, like, I was much more like really like pigmentation of data. I mean, it took, like, now maybe 8 years since 2012. It's a great question. So first of all, working with generative softwares is, like, first another huge trap in the mind. Because again, like, if you are rendering a scene, if you are rendering a moment, you have a decision, you are rendering it. You are saying that's it, that's done, that's an image, that's a video. But when you work with a living system like AI, I mean, you don't have a beginning or end. Like, if you think that you have a beginning and end, you are most likely doing something very old-fashioned. Because again, so first of all, when I learned that when you work with custom softwares, when you work with generative systems, the system is alive. The system is not something that has a beginning or end. The system is just there. So you are just an imagination tool, another tool to make a decision for that, right? But when you start working with AI, like when you have this latent space, which is just infinite, like it just have no beginning, no end, you don't know where you can find where, that feeling, like, already a lot of, like, responsibility. Sometimes it's very depressive, I can tell you. Like, sometimes you think that, like, is this is right space? Like, is this a right image? Is this, I mean, again, you are working with a thinking brush. So it's not like a mouse or a keyboard, or not, you know, some random numbers that runs an algorithm. So I think some people are always missing this part. Like, I mean, I'm reading these comments, oh, wouldn't be the same if it was like a noise, wouldn't be, it's not, like, that's the idea. So I think the people who are missing this part is, like, where I'm just getting like, oh, that's for you. That's why you need to. So what I'm trying to say is you can exactly do many visuals with any LFO numbers. I mean, we have so many generative softwares, machine can plot randomness. Why, yes. But what is the part of your control that you are becoming a part of the machine creativity, that you are deciding numbers, you are becoming a part of those numbers, like how the data can become of that number and how you can iterate that world that is beyond just machine randomness. So I think that part is truly artistic. It's not tech demo. It's not a plugin. It's not about, like, what it's that idea. So I think most of my colleagues or people who are in the field are missing that point. And it's something, I mean, I feel a lot in the contemporary art, like, I can do that, but you didn't do that. Like that move. So I am sorry, but that's what it is. But also what I want to say is, like, it's not about that. It's just, like, really, like, if you could, like, I mean, again, the same idea, like for our, I mean, nature inspired series, it's, I mean, I'm obsessed with water since my childhood. I mean, without water, we are nothing, right? It's in our everywhere. And I thought that it's the most inspiring ever thing. And since 2012, I'm researching fluid dynamics. And it's not because it's just a plugin. It's not because of it is just, you know, numbers. It's just, so that part is, I think, where people are sometimes missing. And I said, okay, what will happen if the same data is, like, looked from the perspective of AI? What will happen if AI can simulate life that is nature, right? But, and then this whole series starts, like Black Sea. So when we think about these ideations, when the questions of about nature and it's the machine's capacity of creating nature, then you have a new universe. You are not anymore plotting things randomly, It's not about like creating, simulations randomly in flip domains. It's not. So, that part is where the depth starts to become. And I think our friends in the field missing this point. Then I see those, sorry, but shallow comments about like this like it's not like you are missing a major point, my friend. That is, so I want to just share very publicly, because of course you can simulate whatever you want in the computer, but why you are simulating which data from which perspective is your point of view, which is, I think, we are missing. And one more thing, I am also very honored when I share these projects with one of my hero, Jensen, who is the CEO of NVIDIA. I mean, 3-4 years ago, like people are saying like how are you accessing all these like big hardwares? Like how is, I mean, I'm telling the same thing. Like you have the same tools, I have the same tools, but maybe the narrative, the story that why it's beyond computer graphics. And Jensen told me the same thing. I am seeing computer graphics next level every single day. I am seeing the best render engines. I am seeing the best brilliant minds showing me every day the best algorithms doing fluid dynamics, but I never saw them through a perspective of narrative. And when you have narrative in your hand, you are not anymore tech demo. You are not anymore just doing a beautiful piece for a VJ event or just, tech demo. You have a purpose. And when that purpose goes to the people who are inventing the tools, then you make the circle happen, if it makes sense. Beautiful questions, and I never like go this deep normally. So I hope for the people, I intentionally change these answers because you are fantastically sharing a community. So it's about like, not about the classical web page thing. It's just go a little bit. Thank you for the great questions. Very, very good question. Again, I think it's a journey. I mean, again, when I want to show you something. So for me, AI is a journey. Like again, 4 years ago, when I understand that, but now, like, I'm using an algorithm called GAN, which is a general adversarial network, and I think it's an incredible algorithm. It's so fresh, and it's always like in flux and change. As a studio, we have been developing a project called Machine Hallucinations, started in 2017. So it's almost 3 years, and honestly, it's an infinite research. So by the way, if you are interested, please watch my TED Talk. I'm trying to give a meaning why we are doing this. So if you're interested, you are very welcome to watch it. But in general, I think it's an infinite research. It's not finished. And I'm trying to find what else we can do with that. As you know, we are a pioneer of like using this GAN with fluid dynamics, GAN with height maps. I think we opened this area now. I'm seeing many people doing the same thing, which is great. That means we inspired a generation. But now we are also doing things that are not like this. So we create a piece in Portland, in city of Portland, and we did this very unique piece. Let me show you if I can find quickly. Or maybe not here yet. But I can show you some. I mean, with this idea of like using generative adversarial networks, we are not like, I think people will remember all these posts from the last 3 years. I have been pushing experiments. But basically, we have been like learning how we can use AI in a way that can always be different. Like, for example, working with NASA JPL last 2 years, looking for the Hubble, ISS, Mars. That's our big research. And constantly changing. Like last 2 years, we also worked with Artec House in New York called Machine Hallucination. That project was really very important for us. And as you see the narrative, like we constantly learn new stories with AI and just finding new language, and that don't stop. And I think we open up a new field and try to be a part of it. And also we are working with robotics. Maybe if you follow my Instagram, you will see that we have a big machine next door. We did a project in Portland, City of Portland, a public art project using machine learning algorithms, and created 3D sculpture and projection map it. So as far as I know, it is one of the first example of a public art, 3-dimensional data sculpture, robotically printed. So we have all these ideas like constantly, developing. Great question. So for me, what was like, I was a arts and resident at Google. So I was very lucky to talk and, think together with the people who are inventing the, algorithms. But for people right now, there's Runway ML, amazing web page that you can go, like, it's just so easy. I mean, let me show you. So you just go here, a wonderful team behind this, just very, I mean, affordable. I am teaching in my class too, like it's perfect for students or first time.
You know, like an app store of AI. So yeah, it's amazing. So you just log in, check in, you know, all these models, you run them, right? It's amazing. Yeah.
It's just so amazing that like you can create like this with a couple of clicks, like go to model, you have your models, you can create your own models. I work with my students here, like literally you can find many things here. It's just public. It's just, I mean, almost free. It's beautiful, simple, no code required. So that's what I'm saying. Like, it's not about anymore. Like it's not anymore exciting to know how to work with AI. By the way, we develop our own software when we need it. When we like for our AI software that I'm showing in my live sessions, they are all custom. When we do like, when you are in deep level, like you can understand the quality of, by the way, GANs very quickly. So if you are a nerd, let me tell you. So like one of the reasons that AI is really heavy is like you need like millions of images. Like if you see some GANs that are like moving in like a short, believe me, it's great to start to understand, but to really learn how to do that and purposefully, you need a lot of data. Like we are working with 70 million, like 113 million images of New York we collected. Like this is a big data. It's not like, it's not a ready-made data. Like cleaning it, preparing it, training it, babysitting it, and then reconstructing it, something not Runway ML will do. You have to develop your own tools. But that's a very, you know, cutting edge version of it. But to try and explore, experiment, Runway ML is amazing. And so, I mean, again, thanks to that photo I show you, Jensen, and we are supported by an amazing supercomputer and computers. We have a lot of GPU support, and because of our collaborations, like maybe for people who wants to remember, we were the first studio using RTX 2 years ago this summer when it's announced. Like we have been using, you may guess, other things. So that's like kind of being on the cutting edge of technology. So that allows us to be a little bit more advantaged. But again, Runway ML doesn't require any code, any like with a couple of $5, you can train your own model. It's just, I mean, again, it may not be the most rich model you may do, but you do not need infrastructure, computers, you don't need that. So that's good news. You can try a lot, please. Yes, I'm not alone. Thanks to from my team too. I represent many people here. I'm not a one-man show. So also from my team, hi to you. So thank you very much.